Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today I want to talk to you about the Legendary Battlecruiser bundle, which contains a legendary version of the Avenger or Inquiry, and the legendary Bortasqu. As always, chapters are listed down below. Okay, so this video is going to be a bit different than normal because I can do this all basically as like a live take, because this bundle is actually live right now on PC. They basically put out this announcement blog just as the PC servers were coming back up from the patch, and the bundle is already available for us to go through and get. So it'll be easier for me to show you guys this stuff in game here. So opening up the C store, going to the on sale tab, we see it here. It has a base cost of 12,000 Zen. There's an introductory sale of 30%, meaning it's 8,400 Zen. And the contents of this bundle are, of course, the legendary Avenger and the Bortasqu. The Avenger here is a Miracle Worker Battlecruiser. The Bortasqu is a Command Battlecruiser. There's also a T6 coupon, which should be tradable. I'll check that here in a second. There's 3 experimental ship upgrade tokens. Now, this is an oversight, in my opinion, on Cryptic's part, because we just had the T6X2 upgrade system release a couple weeks ago. And what this means is that you can only actually go through and upgrade one of these ships X2 with the included upgrades. So hopefully Cryptic recognizes that oversight there and adds 3 more tokens to the bundle so that we can fully upgrade both of these ships. There's 2 included ship slots, 2 ultimate tech upgrades, 4 Infinity R&D packs, the Targ of Grethor combat pet, the core uniform, and the Consul Universal Prior's World Elite Defense Satellite. And for this Prior's World Satellite, it'll apparently show up under the Muds Market tab. So I'm going to go through now and pick up this bundle. There we go. So to confirm, the T6 coupon box can be traded or sold to another player if you keep it in this initial box here. I'm going to toss that in the bank real quick. The 4 included R&D packs, those could also be traded or sold to another player, but I have an issue, so there we go. I've gambled and opened them. Now let's head down to the shipyard here. Let's take a look at the stats of the Inquiry, or the Avenger first here. So Avenger, you can see that the new skin on this is the Inquiry Gamma. This has the Deflector from Season 3 of Star Trek Picard. So for those of you that were not a fan of the original Inquiry visual, you now have access to one with a brand new deflector. Now, being a legendary ship, both of these ships will come with all of the consoles and traits from the prior versions of the line of ships that they're from. So for the legendary Avenger here, you get the consoles off of the T5 Avenger, the T6 Arbiter, and then the Inquiry, and you're also getting the traits off of those T6 ships. For the Avenger here, it has a hull mod of 1.5, shield mod of 0.8, 5-3 weapon setup still, 3 device slots. The bridge officer setup is Commander Engineering with Miracle Worker, Lieutenant Commander Science with Intel, Lieutenant Commander Tactical, Lieutenant Universal, and Ensign Universal. Now, some of you may find that that is actually quite close to the original Inquiry. Basically, with this legendary version of the Avenger, it is basically a copy of the Inquiry. Now, some of you are not going to be happy about this, especially any of you that use your event campaign on the Inquiry. But what they basically did is they flipped these 2 seats around, and on the original promo Inquiry, it was a Lieutenant Science and Lieutenant Commander Universal with Intel. Now, this legendary one is a Lieutenant Commander Science with Intel and a Lieutenant Universal. That's the only change with the bridge officer setup. Now, for the rest of the stats here, this legendary Avenger does have better turn rate and mobility than the original promo Inquiry, which I can show for you here quick. Let me pull up the original's stats here. So we can see that the original promo Inquiry had a hull mod of 1.45. This has a 1.5. This does have a lower shield mod though. The original promo inquiry had a 1.15. This has a 0.8, so much weaker shields, but the mobility is greatly increased. The original inquiry had a turn rate of 8. This has a turn rate of 12, and it has a better inertia at 55 versus 40. So the mobility on this is going to be better, and basically any build that you had on the original inquiry will transition over to this ship basically perfectly. And I almost forgot to mention this, but the consoles on the Avenger are just slightly different from the promo inquiry. On the promo inquiry, it was 5 engineering and then 4 tac, and on the legendary one, they have flipped things around. So it's now 4 engineering and 5 tac console slots, even though this is an engineering battlecruiser. So an interesting change there, but I don't really think that's going to change much build-wise. If you're doing locators or exploiters, it just means you can put more of those on. And if you're doing an isomag setup, it does mean that the promo version of the inquiry does still have a little bit more value, as you could run an extra isomag on the promo variant of the inquiry. And again, with this being a legendary ship, it does include the consoles and traits off of the prior versions of the ships in this line. However, it does not have a new console, but it does have a new starship trait on it. So the Tier 6 Mastery is the trait Ship of the Line. Emergency power abilities will grant you 20% critical severity for 30 seconds. This bonus can stack, increasing by an additional 10% per stack. So it'll be curious to see, how far that trait can actually stack. Does it have a cap? That is something I'll be checking out when I do a review of this ship. Now, another thing that's interesting with this ship is that it has a brand new quad cannon on it, the Overload Linked Phaser quad cannons. And what is special about these quad cannons is that when you hit beam overload on your build, it will count as cannon rapid fire for that weapon. So if I put a bridge officer on here, let me just find one, and if I toss beam overload on, if I hit beam overload, that weapon should get cannon rapid fire. And sure enough, you can see there that it is getting the same rank of rapid fire as the beam overload that I hit. Let's confirm that by me hitting a beam overload 3. And indeed, that worked that way. So interesting mechanic there. I don't know how well this thing's actually going to perform, but it's going to be something interesting to mess around with. And again, for the bridge officer setup on the ship, Commander Engineer with Merc Worker, Lieutenant Commander Science with Intel, Lieutenant Commander TAC, Lieutenant Uni, and Ensign Uni. Basically any build out there for the original inquiry should be able to transfer right over to this ship. This is a very, very close copy to the bridge officer stats on the original inquiry. So if you were ever wanting a promo inquiry, getting this legendary one is basically getting you the promo one on account-wide unlock. And the last thing that I want to look at for the Avenger here today is just the model updates that it got. So alongside the release of that Inquiry Gamma skin, they did also do a remaster on the original Avenger skin, and they also gave this line of ships access to the Odyssey material. So if you have one of the older Avengers, Arbiters, or the Inquiry, and you don't want to buy the new one, you should still have some new skin pieces that you can mess around with. But, for those of you that were a fan of the Inquiry but just really hated that deflector grill thing there, you do have a brand new deflector with this Inquiry Gamma template here that you can get if you buy this legendary bundle. Now, let's head on over to the Bortasqu. And here you can see some of the skin updates for the Bortasqu. This is the Bortasqu flagship skin here. It adds a lot of red to the material of the ship. And for the stats on this thing, of course, again, it's a legendary, so it has all of the prior Bortasqu consoles attached to it, which is really nice for me because I actually never bought any of the prior Bortasquus because I had the Fed and Romulan ones, so I just never saw a need to get the KDF one. We'll cover the trait here in a minute, but stats-wise, hull modifier 1.5, shield mod 1.25, weapons on it is 5.3, so for those of you that were worried about it being a 4.4, you don't have to worry because it is indeed a 5.3. 4 device slots. For the bridge officer setup here, Commander Engineer with Command, Lieutenant Commander TAC with Intel, Lieutenant TAC, Ensign Science, Lieutenant Universal, and a Lieutenant Commander Universal. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's going to be really good for if you want to use this as a tank platform, an energy weapon platform, a torp platform. This is going to be a fairly versatile ship. Consoles, 4 TAC, 5-inch, 2 psi. Base turn rate of 7, impulse mod 0.16, inertia of 40. So it's still going to be a slower moving ship, but you should have quite a bit of punch with this. And it does indeed have a battle cloak. And it has its own set of quad cannons, which we'll take a look at here shortly. And before I head up to space, I do want to just quickly look at some of the updates to the Bortasqu visuals here. So the Bortasqu itself did receive a remaster in the past couple of weeks. This is how we knew that the Bortasqu was going to be getting a legendary upgrade. They don't go through and upgrade the visuals of these older ships unless they're looking to remonetize them. So they updated the Bortasqu so that it looks a bit more modern. The older skins for this ship, which you can still see a couple of them here, you know, some of these older skins you can tell are very old. So they made the original Bortasqu a bit more up to date, not as low res as those other ones. And then with the new legendary skin for it, you're getting a new material and you're getting a lot of red that is put all over the Bortasqu. So you can of course customize this if you want. You can change the material back to the original Bortasqu and keep that red on it. You can do whatever you want with it. Put a D7 one on if you have that material unlocked. You've got plenty of options with this, and I imagine some of you are going to create some very interesting combos. But the point here is that it's a nice visual upgrade, and the ship looks much better than it used to look like. And now let's take a look at the Bortasqu a bit closer up in space. So again, you know, it's a 5-3 setup, and it can use cannons. This thing comes with the cannons pre-equipped on it. And it has a special quad cannon on it also, the Rapid Linked Disruptor quad cannons. Defeating foes during cannon rapid fire reduces the cannon rapid fire recharge by 10% and category recharge by 25%. Compared to the phaser one that the legendary Avenger had, I don't think that this quad cannon is very good. The issue is that rapid fire is not a very good firing mode right now. And with both of these quad cannons having things on them related to rapid fire, it does make me wonder if maybe there's going to be a rapid fire rework in the future. But right now, you know, most people using cannons use cannon scatter volley, which just beats like every other firing mode in the game. So cannon rapid fire with its current performance levels makes me lean towards this quad cannon being a bit less impressive. But again, you know, 5-3 setup on this ship, so you'll have many options as to how to build this. 5 engineering consoles, 2 science, 4 TAC. So if you wanted to do an isomag setup on this, you could put 7 isomags on it once you go through and upgrade it to T6X2. And for the stations here, like I said before, Commander Engineer with Command, Lieutenant Commander TAC with Intel, Lieutenant Commander Universal, Lieutenant TAC, and an Ensign Psi. So it's not as flexible as some of the other ships out there, but that Lieutenant Commander being universal does still give you the ability to do a few different things with this ship if you want. This ship will be a good tank platform, a good energy weapon platform, a good torp platform. You can do a few things with this build, and for those of you that, you know, have been wanting a really good legendary KDF ship, this is certainly one to take a look at. The only weakness this ship has, for those of you looking to set up a tank on it, is that it does not have access to the Attract Fire cruiser command down here. It's got access to the other 3, but because it's a Battlecruiser, it does not have access to the Attract Fire one, which is really nice for tanks. And for the Bortasqu here, alongside the release fit, the consoles on it have been all changed to be unrestricted, meaning that you can take any of the T5 Bortasqu consoles and use them on any ship you want. And for the flagship consoles that were released on the T6 Bortasqu, Scimitar, and Odyssey, those have had the restrictions removed, and you can now use them on whatever ship you want. which is going to be pretty impactful meta-wise because some of those flagship consoles are actually pretty good. The Adaptive Emergency Systems console is sort of like a mini DPRM in that it gives you a damage buff and a survivability buff. The Flagship Tactical Computer is another haste console that you're going to be able to put on builds. So it's going to be pretty interesting seeing how these consoles being unrestricted impacts builds moving forward. And the last thing I want to look at here for the Bortasqu is the new trait on it. The T5 Mastery, of course, unlocks the traits off the prior versions of the Bortasqu, Supercharged Weapons, Checkmate, and Adaptive Hull Plating. So if you don't already have those traits, this will give it to you. And then the T6 Mastery is Thirst for Battle. Using a cloaking device, a cannon rapid fire, or cannon scatter volley will apply a 150% turn rate bonus, 150% flight speed strength, and 40% to cap 1 increased damage buff for 15 seconds. So that's an interesting buff. I don't know how it's going to play out math-wise, but that is certainly an interesting trait for those of you that like cannon builds. That may be something to consider, maybe in a 7th slot. But again, I don't know mathematically how that's going to play out against some of the other traits out there. So overall, the Bortasqu and the Avenger are both interesting. And I think both ships are actually going to be very good performers. The spec layouts on them are both good. And I think the cost of the bundle really is not that bad. 8,400 Zen, or if you're patient and wait for a 35% sale, that would take it down to 7,800. But, you know, for about 80 bucks during a sale, you're getting these two legendary ships and all of the traits and consoles off their prior versions. And you're also getting a T6 coupon, some upgrades, some ship slots. Like, I don't think it's a bad bundle. It's expensive for sure, but that's, you know, everything in Stowe is expensive. But compared to the cost of other things in the game, I really don't think that this is a bad bundle. This is one that I will be recommending moving forward. This is definitely one of the better legendary bundles that we've received. So that's going to be it for this video. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to drop them down below. I am going to be reviewing these ships in some upcoming videos. So if you want to learn more about the performance of the quad cannons, the traits, or whatever, you know, stay tuned for that. And I'll probably be doing a live stream later today after this video releases where I play around with the ships and just get a feel for how they perform. But again, that's going to be it for today. Thanks for stopping by and see you guys around.